I'm in the process of setting up a cabinetry shop in my home garage. And to do that is a pretty time consuming and involved process, especially if you've already got a garage that's full of tools. My previous setup was really aimed at having my tools stored so that I could take them with me onto job sites. I used to do a lot of cabinetry work, built-ins, so forth, and I want to get more into that. But that requires having a large assembly table and being able to process material like sheet goods in an efficient way. If you have to roll around your tools to set things up all the time, sometimes it's just not worth the hassle, especially if it's a smaller job that isn't as profitable. So, time is of the essence. And in order to be efficient, you've got to have tools that are ready to use. I want to share with you the thinking that goes into setting up a small shop like that. And these are not all my own ideas. A lot of these ideas have come from inspiration from other people who've generously shared online and in person. Um, but really, the main concept I want to get across is the idea that in order to do anything like this, you have to be willing to completely upset your old way of thinking. And you got to be willing to let go of all of your old setup entirely, basically to clean slate it. Um, in my case, what I did was I played around a lot with different layouts. And I finally got to the point where I said, everything that is not directly involved with building cabinetry efficiently needs to move out of the primary area in my workspace. That was not easy. And in order to do that, I had to be willing to make a major mess in my shop. Basically, I took everything from this wall that was not cabinetry, and I brought it all the way back here to the back wall of my shop and just created a dump. And that's going to be something that I'm going to have to deal with because there's still tools in here that I might use occasionally. And there's still tools that I use on job sites. But so from this point forward, basically 2/3 of my shop going this way, this is all exclusively um, setups that are used in cabinetry. So the first thing is you got to be able to break down sheet goods properly. For me, it really does not make sense to take a sheet good and to struggle and get it onto a flat surface and then break it down with a track saw. It's backbreaking work to work that way. So what I did was I invested in a panel saw. And the panel saw allows me to keep the material in an upright position straight out of my van, roll it straight across right into the panel saw, and do rips and cross cuts. Now, a panel saw like that is not very expensive. I bought that one used. I found it on Craigslist. I think I paid 1,200 bucks for it. It took some dialing in, change the blade, calibrate it, get it to where it produces consistently straight cuts. So that's critical because a panel saw actually saves a lot of room if you're working with sheet goods on a regular basis. And big shops will typically have a vertical automated panel saw. So I knew I wanted a panel saw. I just didn't have room for a huge one. So my compromise was this one, which happens to be a safety speed version that's marketed by Milwaukee. So it has a Milwaukee saw, but I believe that unit's basically a safety speed. So aside from that, um, I had some cabinetry up here on the wall, it's in my way as a cabinet shop because I want to be able to store sheet goods behind this saw. Now, again, since it's a fairly lightweight saw, I can slide it out of the way and I can get to stored material. So I'm building a platform to support my material. I'm not going to store a lot of material, but I want enough that I can have maybe 6 sheets ready to go. And if I have to build something, at least I can build the carcasses and get going with it for like a built-in, and I don't have to go to a lumber yard to go get that material. So I want to be able to speed up that process. So the next thing was you need an assembly platform to be able to put your materials together. Um, Considered a lot of options. I really don't have the room for an assembly table separate from my table saw. So I combine the two, strongly influenced on what I saw a guy, David Bryant, from, I think he's from Simi Valley. So this is basically his setup. So in my case, I built actual cabinets all the way around. He did his with an outfeed table and then built a top. So, but it still is basically the same solution. And um, so that's very good. And I tried working like this, but I still found it was not 100% of what I wanted because when you're assembling things on a table saw, you need access to be able to still use the table saw. So sometimes that was not good. I don't want to be able to pick up a cabinet and move it around multiple times. Um, so if I'm like cutting down face frame parts, it doesn't make sense to build a carcass, take it off the table, make a face frame, put the carcass back on, and work with it that way. That's how I am. It's all about efficiency. So basically, having my cabinet shop set up left to right like this in this confined area is very minimal walking. Okay, so I can rip parts, I can saw here, I can go over here to this 3MFT setup, and I could do everything from line boring, pocket holes. I can use a domino machine. I can use my peanut system for joinery. So a lot of variety here, as well as I can pull the hardware off the front of the MFT and I can set up some clamping and I can edge band my parts and so forth, depending upon what that is. So anyway, so these are my 3 primary areas to break down and prep material. And then in terms of assembly, I've got this big torsion box. You probably can't see it in that video, but it's 8 foot long and 3 foot wide, and it's 6 inches thick, and it's all torsion box assembly. And it has levelers on the ground. It's got 8 levelers around the perimeter. So my assembly table's a torsion box, and it's dead flat. I've got my torsion box on the ground for doing assembly, and I've got my MFTs all in a row, and they're all level, built also on almost the torsion box. There's no bottom to the torsion, so it's a top with a grid, whatever on that guy. So so what's the what's the plan with the rest of this stuff? What I'm going to do is, you know, it gets daunting. Let's just put it this way. Sometimes when you create a big mess like this and you don't have a specific plan when you have consolidated all this stuff, you have to almost give yourself permission to make a mess first in order to create a solution. Okay, so you focus on partial solutions. And this is a concept that Paul Akers really is helpful and has inspired me a lot. Is the idea of instead of trying to solve a problem 100% one time, and if you can't do it, you don't even bother. here's the alternative. It's called 3Sing, which basically you make 3 second improvements. You make bite-sized improvements every day. You may not be able to attack one whole big project or a whole shop makeover in one day. You may not even know what specifically you want to do or what the end is going to look like. But what you do is you focus on what you can take action on right now and you take bites out of it. For example, dust collection is something that I need, but it's always been a problem in this shop because my dust collector sat here. And with the door down, which is ideal, I should have the door down when I'm working, it blocks my path to be able to get to this equipment. So I'm very limited. And now that I have this torsion box on the ground, I really want to make sure that I have as much working space to work around this island as possible. So yesterday, I got to thinking about it, and again, I had like my jacks for working on my car because I do that as a hobby as well. Um, I had my mechanics tools. All of that stuff was right here by the door, which made sense for working on a car. The problem is, my primary focus is on setting up a cabinet shop. I don't work on cars all the time. So what I did was I got all that stuff out of here and it's temporarily blocking my access to my sink and stuff. So it really bugs me having it here. But temporarily, I just got it out of that area. And that allows me to then get my dust collector in the corner. Today, the next thing I'm going to have to do is I'm going to have to move this clamp storage apart so my dust collector has room to function. And I'm going to have a path for my ducting so that my table saw gets fed. Second thing is I'm going to have a duct because I want to make room for storage behind my panel saw. So this dust collector needs to get out of here. So that shop vac needs to hit the road. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to run a drop for ducting, and it's going to go across, and it's going to go down, and then I'm going to make a connection here to the dust collector. So the table saw and the panel saw will both have actual dust collection connected to them. And that's something I haven't done for over 10 years. I haven't had fixed dust collection in my shop. Um, Again, because I didn't want to have a lot of space devoted to it. So, anyway, I guess the main message is give yourself permission to make a mess, make incremental improvements, and as long as you're moving forward, um, you're making progress. And give yourself permission to let go of stuff too.